Hi, this is Lyn Ulbricht.
And this is Gary Leland, and you're listening to episode 86 of the Crypto Cousins podcast.
Feed your interest in Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies by joining Hall of Fame podcaster Gary Leland on the Crypto Cousins podcast. And remember, we are all cousins in the world of crypto. This week's price of Bitcoin:
$3,975. That's up $111, or 2.8% over the last 7 days. Howdy, howdy, howdy. Welcome to the show, Lyn. It's been almost a year.
Wow, time flies, doesn't it?
Yeah, I was looking at the Skype to contact you, and I saw it was March the 29th.
Oh, wow, almost exactly a year.
Yeah, that is crazy. So you've been on the go from what I understand.
Yeah, that's true. And, doing a lot of things to raise awareness for Ross, to get petition signatures for Ross. His petition and raise funds and all that. And it just happened to be a really busy time, January and February.
Well, for those who are listening who may be new to this world of cryptocurrency and everything that's been going on and has been going on, may not be familiar with you or your situation. That's what we're trying to do, is spread the word. How about real quickly, in your own words, introduce yourself and talk about Ross?
Sure. Again, my name is Lyn Ulbricht, and I'm Ross Ulbricht's mom, and he is serving a double life sentence plus 40 years without the possibility of parole for all nonviolent charges for creating and operating the Silk Road website. Although there are many questions about how much he operated it, he got the full brunt of the blame, and he's in prison. And what I'm doing is trying to raise awareness, because there's so many things that are wrong with this case that set terrible precedent for all of us. And it's just wrong for Ross to die in a cage for the charges. And some of the charges and convictions are pretty bogus too, like the kingpin charge, which was basically laid on him as a threat by the prosecution. They never really substantiated why it was a valid charge. And yet they got away with that, because there are certain rules about that. And just to say that Silk Road, Ross created Silk Road when he was 26, very idealistic, Ron Paul supporter, and, very much involved with Austrian economics and free markets and the financial potential of Bitcoin. And he wanted people to know about it, and he created this website. So his intention was not to be a drug kingpin, quote unquote. It was totally based in freedom and free markets. For this, he's gotten a double life sentence. So I'm working to get him a commutation from the president.
And how is that going at the moment?
Well, we've got a petition, which please sign the petition if you haven't already. It's on freeross.org. And it has over 138,000. Oh, no, we just passed 139. Wow, cool. I just looked. So it's got over 139,000 signatures so far. And my goal is 500,000. I want to be able to go to President Trump and say 500,000 people care about this and want you to take a look at this. Please consider commuting this sentence. And we're not asking for a pardon or total exoneration or saying that Ross didn't do anything wrong or illegal or anything like that. We're saying that this sentence for a first-time offender, no violence whatsoever, is way out of line. It puts us all in peril to have this kind of abuse of government power and judicial power. And I'm very hopeful that he will commute Ross's sentence.
So what do you say is the reason that Ross got such a harsh punishment? In your opinion, or people you talk to? Because I know you've done a lot of work on this.
Yeah, I definitely have an opinion. At first, I assumed it was because of drugs, because drugs, mostly small amounts of cannabis, but drugs were allowed to be sold on the site. And by the way, there were things that were prohibited, because it was based on the philosophy of voluntary interaction and the do no harm principle. So nothing that harmed a third party was permitted. So, for example, nothing related to pedophilia or stolen property or weapons or other things, assassinations or whatever. were not allowed to be sold. And actually, Curtis Green, who was a top-level admin, told me that they would go through and purge things that people were trying to get by selling that stuff to keep it, online with voluntary interaction. I thought it was drugs because that's what the prosecution said it was. But then I saw that the biggest drug seller on Silk Road got 10 years, and he has the same offense level as Ross. And Ross got double life plus 40 years. And I'm like, that's weird. That shows it's not about drugs. This guy was actually selling drugs. Ross is not accused of actually selling drugs. He's accused of offering a platform where other people bought and sold things, including drugs. So also Blake Benthal, who was running Silk Road 2 after Silk Road was taken down, which the government said was bigger, had more and sold more drugs in a month than Silk Road, he never got any time. He spent 13 days in custody and he is free. So I just didn't see that it was about drugs. And I believe it was about Bitcoin. It was the first proof of use of Bitcoin. It was the first time people had really heard of Bitcoin, except some people who are, very tech and kind of esoteric.
First time I heard of Bitcoin had to do with a conversation about Silk Road.
Yeah. A lot of people, they say, I got my first Bitcoin there. It introduced in a big way through the market, proving it could be used as currency. And I believe because Chuck Schumer came out swinging with he wanted to take down Bitcoin and he wanted to take down Silk Road. And he instigated the investigation and all that. And there's a lot of pressure on law enforcement to produce somebody that could be their trophy. Now, not only was Chuck Schumer behind it, but the lead prosecutor was Preet Bharara, who is Chuck Schumer's longtime cohort and owed his job to Chuck Schumer. And the judge was recommended to the bench by Chuck Schumer. And Ross was brought from California, where he lived and was arrested, back to Schumer's state, to the Southern District of New York to be tried.
And I've always had a question about that. Was there any reason given why
No.
he was arrested in California, then brought to New York for trial when he didn't go do any crime in the state of New York?
Well, they claim because it was, internet that they could try him anywhere, and they wanted it there. Southern District of New York is known for being tough.
So they were looking for a place that would be tough.
Well, they wanted it. A lot of people wanted this case. And of course, Chuck Schumer wanted it there. He even came out before trial and said to Eric Holder publicly in a letter, "Congratulations, you got your man." This is before trial. We're supposed to have trials to determine guilt. Chuck Schumer decided he would just bypass that little detail and come out publicly tainting the jury pool in New York by saying Ross was already guilty. And this is a senator. This is a U.S. senator. He was on the Senate Finance Committee. He was on the Senate Banking Committee. He's in bed with Wall Street and that whole cartel there. And I believe they were very alarmed about Bitcoin. I think that is the reason that they went after the whole thing so hard. And actually, this was corroborated about a year ago. The Intercept came out with a story that Snowden documents revealed that the NSA was urgently tracking Bitcoin users a few months before Silk Road was taken down and Ross was arrested.
I remember that came out.
They're supposed to be tracking terrorists, okay? They're not supposed to be tracking Americans. And in fact, it's illegal. And it was secret. And Snowden revealed it. And that says to me, the NSA is like you're talking about the full force of the federal government after you. They were very concerned about Bitcoin. I don't think the drug dealer who got 10 years, he was even on their radar. They didn't care.
That just was a side thing that happened.
Well, yeah, they're going to arrest them. But the second biggest seller got 5 years. The guy who sold the most meth got 3 years. It was 6, but the judge, because of the corrupt agents involved in the case, he cut it in half. And look, I'm not sorry they got that time. I'm just saying this isn't fair that Ross should be the scapegoat for this whole thing and have his entire life taken away when people who have comparable deeds are out. It's like, it's not right.
Yeah, I agree completely. I just can't imagine what you're going through, and especially just to have your son in prison would be one thing, but to have your son in prison and the situation, I guess that I'm saying, that there's no parole, that all this stuff is really crooked, I mean, I don't know if you want to call it crooked, but it's awful weird, no matter how you look at it.
There's a lot of questions. And they've left all the material, a great deal of the evidence, sealed, undisclosed, and encrypted. And I'm like, why?
Yeah,
It's over. What are you hiding? Why is it still undisclosed and sealed? And why aren't the corrupt agents' emails decrypted?
will they not supply an answer for that?
Haven't so far. They pretty much do what they want, Gary. That's my experience. We've had FOIA requests that are just totally stonewalled. They use the bureaucracy. I feel like they weaponize the bureaucracy against people. It's kind of like, just try to scale those walls if they decide to not let you. The bureaucracy, and that works on all kinds of levels. In the prison, trying to get something to happen. Now, sometimes it does, and there's good people in the prison. I'm not, there are, and sometimes you can. But if you run up against something or someone and they don't want to, and you don't have connections and you can't make it happen, good luck.
So Ross has been to quite a few prisons now, or several, being transferred. Where's he at the moment?
He was just transferred in January to Tucson, USP Tucson. The reason he is because Tucson's a place to keep people safe who are targeted. And Ross was targeted because he refused, when pressured by, some gangs in there, to, with another guy, beat up another inmate that they decided was a snitch. Ross later met the guy, actually, on way to Tucson, and the guy's like, I wasn't a snitch. My cellmate set me up. Okay, whatever. It's like Ross said, no, I'm not going to go beat up some guy I don't even know. I don't do that. I'm not someone who does that. But by refusing, then you don't say no. Let's just put it that way. If he was then a target, he was in danger, and the prison determined that was accurate. And so he was put in protective custody, which essentially it was a 10 by 8 by 10 metal box with no window for 3.5 months. And pretty much communication was cut off. He could send letters, I believe, but no phone, one phone call a month. And, just sitting in a metal box, waiting for his fate to be revealed to him, and thankfully he was moved to Tucson, where it's much safer, because he was in a very violent prison. Ross is not violent. He has no charges of violence, no record of violence. But because of that sentence that judge gave him, he was put into a maximum security prison. And that's where the Bureau of Prisons puts their most violent gangs and dangerous criminals, short of the Supermax. And it was right by the Supermax. And so, his security score is so low, he would be in a camp if it weren't for that, with no fences, except for that sentence. So he now is in a place that he can relax a little, because in the other place, they had murders, stabbings, beatings, lockdowns all the time. And it's a dangerous environment, very dangerous. So I'm very relieved that he is in Tucson, and he is too.
Now, do you live in Tucson now?
I'm going to go there. I'm going to move there. I haven't managed to do that yet, but I will be doing that very soon.
Well, let's go to something else I want to make sure everybody knew about, is the series Railroaded.
Mm-hmm.
In case you're not familiar with this, or even if you are familiar with this situation and you want to find out more.
Yeah.
You can go to freeross.org, and down at the bottom of the page, and the links is Railroaded, what is
There's
that?
There's a big banner, actually, a big banner right at the top of the page.
Okay.
To click. Yeah, just so.
Well, if you click on that, you'll go to a page that has the Railroaded. It's, is it a 5-part series, or?
I think it's 6. And it's, there is a written component with almost 400 footnotes. There's an audio version that a professional narrator volunteered his time to do for us, and with some visuals to go along with it, if you want. And it is based on the public record, because, again, everything else is undisclosed and sealed. But even so, there's a lot in there that I didn't know and learned working on this project. It's pretty eye-opening and quite riveting. I mean, people have told me they couldn't stop reading it or listening to it. It was like, wow. So it's worth, if you're at all interested in this case or how the system works, it's a good thing to read or listen to.
Well, I heard Peter McCormick.
Yeah.
ran
be on the
it
phone.
as a series. I think maybe he did it in a week, and on his podcast, and it really was. Not only was it very informative, it was very well done. You're right. That guy. I think when I saw you, I was like, "Wow, did y'all have a professional do that?" And you were like, "Yeah, yeah, it was well put together, and it's an excellent listen or watch for anyone." So I recommend that people go check that out, because I just was really impressed with the quality of it and the information I learned from it. But there are a lot of ways people can help Ross. I mean, they can, if you use these links at the bottom, not only can you sign a petition, which is great, you can donate money.
Yeah, which we always need. Yeah.
Shop at Amazon even. That doesn't take any effort. You just go to Amazon through this link.
Exactly.
And buy what you're going to buy anyway.
And it doesn't cost you anything extra.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for mentioning that, because that's a great way to help us. Yep.
Yeah, that's a great way. And then it has now Ross. I wasn't familiar with it. I follow Ross on Twitter, but I'm on the page looking. So you're explaining to me as we explain to other people. I noticed there's 2 Twitter accounts here for Ross.
Well, one is the one I started, which is free_Ross, and I've had that for years. And then Ross decided that he wanted to be able to communicate. He has been advised by his lawyers for so long that you can't say anything, you can't say anything, you can't say anything. And he was tired of having people, being so smeared as this thug when that is so not him. And he just wanted to be able to reach out himself. So he can't get on the internet. He hasn't been on the internet in over 5 years, but he can write down his messages, and a friend has been putting it up.
Can he not be on the internet because his crime had to do with the internet, or is it because there's no internet there at the prison?
No inmates are allowed on the internet, but most of them have email privileges within Core Links, which is a internal email program. But they won't let Ross use it because his is an internet crime, which has been really a hardship for us. Communication. He's very limited phone calls, so we have to do so much by snail mail. I mean, it just takes, it's just cumbersome compared to email, and it cuts him off, but they won't let him use the email. It's such a joke because violent gang leaders who can organize riots nationwide have email, but Ross can't have email.
Right.
And they don't really, from what I can tell, they really don't understand technology and the internet. And so, for instance, one correctional officer said to Ross, "Well, you might build a firewall." And Ross was like, "What are you talking about?" And the guy just walked away. He has no idea what he's talking about.
I found that to be true. I remember there was a presidential candidate, 6-8 years ago, that said he didn't know how to use email. He had his secretary print his emails and bring them to him so he could read them on paper. God. So I don't think that's just in the prison system.
No, it's not. No.
That made me kind of scared. That guy was running for president, and he didn't know how to use email.
That email's not that hard.
Yeah. If your guy can't handle that.
Yeah, that's true. Good point. How are you supposed to handle? I've had a very steep learning curve with technology, and a lot of times some of these young people who are talking to me about all kinds of stuff, and I'm like, "Listen, guys, I'm doing my best here, but I'm old. Come on." I do pretty well considering my age, but it's like instead of learning a language as a child and knowing it naturally, it's like learning it as an adult, and I will never be as fluent as they are and as comfortable with it as they are.
Right.
I'm a better speller, and I have better penmanship, though.
Well, speaking of penmanship, from what I understand, Ross has been working on his penmanship.
He has. He was because that's all he has. He can't type stuff, and so he did. He even had a book on it because his penmanship, like most people his age, was pretty bad because they don't ever write anything.
Right.
And so it's pretty good. Yeah. His penmanship's really gotten pretty good. And he's artistic, so it kind of goes along with penmanship, writing.
Well, speaking of artistic, see how you're just leading me into all my things I had here. I noticed on your store, there's artwork. Is that prints from artwork by Ross?
Yeah, and we're going to put more up. We have an art game, which is based on a sketch Ross did that you can, for $1, you can reveal a square. It's on a grid, and that's almost done. So we'll put that up too. It's kind of wild. It's a kind of a wild picture, but this one is about the trial. He's looking at the trial through his own mask at all the people who are also wearing masks at the trial. It's called The Trial I Saw. Right. And it's pretty cool. And you can get it framed or unframed. And yeah, it's Ross's original work.
Well, I saw that. And
he did in prison, by the way, of course,
Oh.
because he's been in prison.
Oh, yeah. Ever since the trial.
Yeah. And it was just done on a little, ever since his arrest. It's longer than just the trial. But
ever since his arrest. He wasn't
they
even.
denied him bail based on false allegations that they dropped later. Yeah.
That's right.
That's a whole other thing. Yeah. So it's just on a 8x10 originally piece of paper with pencil. So, it's limited what he can use, but it's pretty good. I think it's quite good.
No, I thought it was too. That's why I saw it. And I was like, wow, this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure there's a lot of stuff on here that you can, on the site, like I said, not if you're educating yourself, but to help Ross. Yeah. And y'all have really tried to make it easy for people to get involved and help him out.
Yeah, it's dense. It's a dense site, but you can just go as deeply into it as you like. And that's one of the reasons we wanted to create Railroaded, is to let journalists and others have an easy access to this record, because it is very complicated. And this way, you can follow a footnote if you want to see the original document, or just pick and choose what you think is interesting, but to just kind of lay it out in a way that is accessible. The media does not do the greatest job in covering things beyond a very shallow level most of the time.
And it's got to be really something hot right now. And this is not a hot button with anyone right now, I guess. So.
Well, and even when it was only the sensationalistic stuff that the government put out, like murder for hire, that was later dropped, and they never charged him with a trial. And, but they just say it. And then the media loves that stuff. That's clickbait. Right.
Can people write Ross a letter?
Yeah. And the address is on, we have a page called Reach Out, and that is to write Ross and other ways that people can help.
I see it. Tucson, Arizona. USP Tucson.
Yep. It's in Arizona. He's in Arizona.
Does he get much mail?
Yeah, I think he does get it. I think he gets more than the average inmate, because so many people know about his case and care about him. And his birthday's coming up. He's going to be 35 years old. What a waste, huh? It's like, wow, what a waste. But anyway, he's going to be because he's been in there since he was 29 years old. He is going to be 35 on March 27th. So if anybody wants to send him a birthday greeting, I'm sure he would love that.
Well, that would be really nice. That would be, I bet. So he's in a much better situation in Tucson than it was before.
Yeah, at least the whole specter of violence and potential, I was frankly worried he could be killed or damaged. You can have your head kicked in. You can be stabbed.
Yeah.
You can be really hurt. And I know a woman whose husband was taken off to the hospital because he hadn't beat up the guy hard enough. That same little thing that they wanted him to do. It's tough in there. These are violent people. And not all, but it's a tough place that is very strict within the inmate population, as well as, of course, then the prisons are strict too, but we don't have that here. It's safe here.
I know that you speak at a lot of places and go to a lot of events. What are some of the upcoming events that if people happen to be in that area, they might be able to see you at? Do you have any scheduled in the near future?
Yeah, I'm planning to attend and hopefully speak at the Red Pill Expo in Hartford, Connecticut in early June, which is put on by G. Edward Griffin. That's, I think, will be very interesting. And then following that, I'm going to be speaking at PorcFest, Porcupine Freedom Festival, which it'll be my 6th time. It's kind of like old home week to go there. It's a lot of fun. It's outdoors, and it's not that far from Hartford. So those are 2 things I have planned. But in the middle of all this, I'm planning to go to Washington, D.C. very soon and try to get appointments with Congress people and others in Washington who can help me connect to President Trump. And so I'm going to do that. And in the middle of all of this, I'm moving to Tucson. So it's pretty crazy. But, Congress, they all leave, I believe, in June. I got to get up there.
Well, sometimes I feel like that's a good thing. They can't do anything.
Yeah, except it's not a time to be able to talk to them about much.
Right. In your situation, it's not good, but I think for the most part, if they can't do anything, sometimes that's better.
Oh, I know. They go, oh my God, the government's shut down. I'm like, oh, good.
Yeah, maybe we can give them another month off.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to make sure that we get everything out to the listeners that will be of help in your efforts or to Ross. Is there anything that maybe I forgot to say or anything you want to make sure that we say?
No, actually, you've been great. You've covered a lot of things. I would say that to sign the petition, you do not have to agree with Silk Road or Ross or think he's a good person or anything. It's about the sentence and the precedent that sentence sets. It's very bad because if we start putting nonviolent people away for life, first-time offender, this is a very bad precedent that's going to affect a lot of people. And, when I was a kid growing up, you only got life. Very few people did. Now life sentences have quintupled.
Yeah, we have a big prison population now.
Oh, it's 800% bigger. It's metastasized 800%. If the prison population were a state, it has a higher population than 11 states. That's how big it is. It's getting bigger and bigger with these sentences that are out of control and with the drug war. Over 60% of inmates are drug offenders. And when I was growing up, you had to be a mass murdering maniac to get life. And even then, if you had life in 30 years, you could, if you of good behavior, you could be released. Now that is taken away. There is no parole. You die in prison. So this is a big money maker. Inmates cost the taxpayers a lot of money, and a lot of people are making money off of it. And it's a national disgrace, in my opinion. So, this all feeds into this petition because Ross is high profile. We're trying to shine a light on this. And so please sign the petition. Please share it. And the other thing, of course, we have that whole reach out page has other suggestions of how you can help. But we also always need money because we need lawyers, and lawyers are ridiculously expensive, but they are.
That's why there's so many of them.
Yeah, that's why they're all running the government too. So, but in any case, but we do need them, and that's always helpful. Any amount, is helpful. It adds up, and we really appreciate it. Oh, and the other thing I was going to say is there are 100 letters on our website that were submitted to the judge. They're part of the record of people who know Ross. They actually know him. 4 of them were fellow inmates. And if you are interested to find out who Ross really is, read a couple of those letters. There's also a page, Meet Ross, and it's more about who he is as a person. He's a good person. He's not an evil, dangerous person. And he's a compassionate person, and he wants to be able to contribute to society and not be wasted in a cage. So please help us. Yeah. And thank you, Gary, for, you've been such a good friend and supporter for, all along. And since we met, I guess it was in Dallas.
Yep, it was. I kind of I felt your pain right away. And the more research I did into it, the more I felt like this was just crazy that someone would be given this kind of sentence.
Right.
Even if you just look at it from that aspect.
Exactly.
I mean, I assume he would have got the death penalty if that would have been available.
Yeah, she said she wanted to give him the harshest penalty possible. She just wasn't allowed to give him the death penalty. But she's basically given him a death sentence.
Yeah.
It's a walking death sentence.
Because 2 life sentences wouldn't be enough. We got to have another 40 on there, and then no parole.
And she could have given him, until I laid the kingpin charge, the mandatory minimum would have been 10 years. And then they laid the kingpin charge on him, and that made it 20 years. But she could have given him 20 years, which is very long. It's a generation. It's a long sentence for a 29-year-old guy.
Yeah, someone who's 29 and 49, spending 20 years, almost half their life in prison, they're not going to be the same person when they come out.
No, he already isn't. He's already matured a great deal.
Yeah, you're just going to be able to see your family is all that means.
But that wasn't enough for this woman. She won't be happy till he leaves as a corpse. And he was her 5th life sentence that year. It was only May. She's known for this kind of cruel and outrageous sentencing. And I've been told by many defense attorneys that, they totally disapprove of how she is. But luckily, she's retired.
Oh.
So luckily for future people, they won't have to be before her in court.
I guess in the Old West, she'd have been known as the hanging judge, huh?
Sure would.
I mean,
Bloody Mary.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming on. I really do. I enjoy this conversation. And like I said, I am always willing to help you any way I can. Let's do this again, but let's don't wait a year.
No,
we do it again.
Anytime. I'm always happy to talk to you, Gary, and hopefully our paths will cross.
Well, we saw each other at the
Austin.
Austin, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks, Lyn.
Thanks, Gary.
I hope you enjoyed today's show. A big thank you to all the cousins out there that are showing their support by donating, subscribing, and leaving great reviews on iTunes. All of those things help more than you realize. Now, you can subscribe almost anywhere podcasts are available by going to cryptocousin.com/subscribe. Call me with your comments or questions at 747-777-9471, or you can email me at thecryptocousins@gmail.com, and I'll try to use these on future episodes. Please take a peek at the 4-Minute Crypto Show, which is produced every weekday and located at 4minutecrypto.com. It's the place to get your daily dose of crypto news, and as always, 4 minutes or less. And one last thing, please take a look at my new website, Crypto Crybaby. This website is for the true crypto fan and sells Bitcoin and crypto gear like t-shirts, caps, and so much more. Take a look at CryptoCrybaby.com today. Thanks again for listening. Love you guys.
Thanks for listening to the Crypto Cousins podcast. Please share the show with your friends. They can subscribe by going to cryptocousins.com/subscribe. And if you want to know more about Gary, just go to GaryLeland.com. Make sure and join Gary and all the Crypto Cousins every week for a new episode of the Crypto Cousins podcast. The Crypto Cousins podcast and the information included in the podcast are not intended as investment advice. Investing in any cryptocurrency is risky, and you should never invest more than you can afford to lose. Always seek professional advice before investing in any cryptocurrency. Please understand, you are using any and all information from the Crypto Cousins at your own risk.